Congratulations! Today is your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away.
Writer and illustrator Theodore Geisel, or better known as Dr. Seuss, the best-selling children's author of all time, revolutionized the way children learn to read. And today, we're counting down to the top 5 things you didn't know about Dr. Seuss. Number 1. Dr. Seuss is not his real name. His real name is Theodore Geisel, but he changed it to his pen name after he was kicked off the school humor magazine, The Jack-O-Lantern, at Dartmouth, after getting caught drinking in his dorm room. He was no longer allowed to write under his given name, so he used his mother's maiden name, Seuss, and added doctor because his father always wanted him to practice medicine. Later, Ted received an honorary doctorate degree from Dartmouth. Number 2. Before Theodore Geisel became famous for writing children's books, he was a political cartoonist, advertising illustrator, and a documentary filmmaker. He first began his career by illustrating political cartoons. He later wrote and illustrated cartoons for the U.S. Army as well as made animated films for soldiers. Number 3. Dr. Seuss's first book, And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, was rejected 27 times. It wasn't until he was walking down the street one day that he bumped into an old college colleague. His friend was an editor and published the book, but not before changing the name from A Story That No One Can Beat to And to Think I Saw It on Mulberry Street. Dr. Seuss went on to write several famous books, such as If I Ran the Zoo, Fox and Socks, Horton Hears a Who, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. During his career, Ted's publisher asked him to write and illustrate a children's book using only 225 new reader vocabulary words. An article had recently been released which was critical of school primers. 9 months later, Dr. Seuss published his most famous book yet, The Cat in the Hat.
Look! A cat! In a hat!
You will note I am neat. Wiped my feet on the mat.
3 years later, his editor, Bennett Cerf, bet Theodore that he couldn't write a book using only 50 words. Dr. Seuss took on the challenge and wrote his famous Green Eggs and Ham.
Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them, Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham.
Number 4. Theodore Geisel was not only an author and illustrator, he was also a liberal and a moralist. He often expressed his views in his books through ridicule, satire, wordplay, nonsense words, and wild drawings. In Horton Hears a Who, Dr. Seuss focuses on the powerless.
A person's a person, no matter how small.
Dr. Seuss also addresses issues of conformity. In the book, Horton the elephant stands out from the rest of the jungle animals and refuses to conform. Yertle the Turtle, published in 1958, was another book with a political message, symbolizing the rise and fall of Hitler. The story is about how all individuals should be free. In the book, King Yertle, who represented Hitler, stands on top of all the turtles so he can be higher than the moon. Eventually, the turtle on the bottom burps, and King Yertle and all the others fall. Inspired by the yellow star that Jews were demanded to wear by the Nazis, Theodore Geisel wrote the book The Sneetches. In the story, the yellow plain-bellied Sneetches were being discriminated against by the star-bellied Sneetches. That's when a man named McBean arrived with a star-on machine and a star-off machine. The Sneetches battled to be better than the others until one day they realized that neither is superior. The theme of discrimination and racism is seen throughout the story, with the star implying the political message. Finally, the Butter Battle book sent a clear political message about the Cold War at the time. The book portrays a war between the Yuks, representing Americans, and the Zooks, representing the Soviet Army. The story is about a war driven by two viewpoints of which side of the bread to put butter on. The two rivals keep developing larger weapons, which is associated with the arms race. The message is how the war could have been avoided altogether if both sides would have just let it go, not needing to develop more powerful weapons. Number 5. Dr. Seuss had a big impact on pop culture. He was the first known author to use the word nerd, which he wrote in his book, If I Ran the Zoo. He also used the word burp in Yertle the Turtle, which was considered rather rude. Dr. Seuss never had any children. He was quoted once saying, "You have 'em, I'll amuse 'em." His last book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, was published in 1990. Over 300,000 copies are bought each year as gifts for high school and college graduates.
And will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. Kid, you'll move mountains.
And that's the top 5 things you didn't know about Dr. Seuss.